All these rejections from the middle Bollinger Band.
Resistance we're going to need.
If you actually see here, we get
And we'll look for a healthy higher
I
low.
would not be eager to enter long trade.
Howdy crypto friends, hope you're doing well. Currently on the road and staying in a really cool Airbnb that has a lot of funky stuff. So every day I'll show you some little trinket from around this place, but as you'll see, I've got some pretty sweet curtains in the background, moving up in the world. And check out this. This is the painting that was over the bedroom last night. This clown, pretty creepy. So, some fun things around here. There's a cool book I'll show tomorrow, but we're looking at Bitcoin on the daily time frame, and we're approaching the key resistance of 68.91. That's the top that we saw on the bull reaction to the BitMEX going down and all that manipulation people were talking about. So I'm watching out for the potential of an equilibrium. If we set a lower high compared to that level, we're going to pull back and we'll look for a higher low. Again, I was talking about the range in previous videos, the range of this candlestick where we had that high and then the low of the dump. And I do believe we are going to trade within this range for days and days. It's already been a couple of days. If we lose this low of 6,668, then we are going to be looking at the pullback and our lower high being set. Bulls are hoping this is a cup and handle pattern. I personally would like to see the right side a little bit closer to the left side. Certainly possible that the breakout could happen. But again, if we break 6,668, we're going to look to pull back and form a higher low compared to the low of 6,250 and watch this daily range tighten up from there. So the high, low in the same candlestick, and then a lower high, and then we would look for the higher low. The exponential moving averages on the daily time frame are closing in on each other. The last time we saw a bull cross of those moving averages, we saw a significant upside. The day that those crossed, we ended up seeing an extra, $1,500, more than that, $1,800 to the upside. So we're still watching the weekly equilibrium. And if these bulls can see this follow through and continuation, we're going to look to get to 7,200 or so, which is the level I've been marking as the potential to put us right back in the middle of this weekly equilibrium. And then we're going to have a really nice tight weekly equilibrium into September. And then when it breaks, likely sometime in later September, we're going to look for that to dictate momentum for the rest of the year. So we're getting a nice clear setup. I love when we get these clear setups because the breaks are so clear and we get follow through. So that's what we're going to be looking for, and I want to see the bulls get up to 7,200 to give us the most tight, clear pattern possible, and then we can trade off of that, and it has the potential to change the weekly downtrend, or it has the potential to break 5,700 and see another leg down. So essentially, I would say towards the end of the year, we're either going back to 10,000 or down to 4,000. That's pretty much what I'm going to be looking for, and how we break from this weekly equilibrium that does still need a little bit of follow through for the bulls, but how we break from that pattern is going to dictate which of those is the likely scenario. So the shorts are still pretty high up here. This is the daily chart. They have started covering to a certain degree, but this weekly chart, you can see they're still very high, 36,000 shorts. They're not comfortable at this point. The daily time frame for Bitcoin is the highest price that we have currently seen. Aside from that spike, is the highest price that we've seen in weeks since back on August 8th and 7th. So we're talking about, 2.5 weeks where the price is higher than it's been. So anybody that entered shorts down in the past 2.5 weeks is currently in the red. And if the bulls can continue this higher low, higher high pattern, they're only going to keep adding pressure. So while it's not a short squeeze is when it happens in a very short amount of time. And I pointed out, how the bulls have to keep that pressure on in a recent video. But this is a more slow and steady kind of pressure being put on these bears. Although at this point, it's not significant. I think a lot of people are going to be watching this resistance level of 68.91. And if that level were to break, then again, I think we would see another wave of shorts begin to cover in that instance. So Ethereum on the daily time frame, trying to play catch up, still weak. We still have a couple higher lows to be watching, but other than that, we have not broken any lower highs. Very clear resistance at 299 and then up to 322. And exponential resistance still rejecting the price. Completely different outlook than what Bitcoin has. You can see Bitcoin is well above its high from the mid-August bounce, and we are not on ETH. We're much further below it. So the bulls are still trying their best to see follow through, and they're building a base of support. We're getting an inside bar, I should say, on the weekly time frame that we're going to be watching for a clear break next week. If it's a bear break, this weekly RSI is going to be very close to oversold, and that would mean that Bitcoin likely didn't get up into the low 7,000 range. If we get a bull break, that means likely Bitcoin is heading up into the 7,000 range, and we would look for ETH to set a weekly lower high somewhere in the perhaps the 340, 350 area. That's a long way away. Bulls have a ton of work to do to change this trend, and you can see Bitcoin is so much closer to changing the weekly downtrend, still a ways away, but so much closer than Ethereum. The last lower high here on Ethereum was 516, and we are currently way below that level. So in terms of a weekly trend change, it's nowhere near happening on Ethereum, and Litecoin nowhere near happening as well. So checking back in on the short-term levels on Ethereum, 4-hour time frame, higher low. So support is 277 and 270.27, and resistance is 283 and then up to 299. So bulls are trying to see this cross of the exponential moving averages, trying to see follow through. The ETH BTC chart is still weak. I personally have no interest playing ETH bullish over Bitcoin until this ETH BTC daily chart changes the trend. And again, it's a very clear downtrend at this point. The weekly time frame is just falling apart. We're close to oversold on the weekly, so I will start to be paying attention if we do see another solid leg down and that weekly RSI oversold. But other than that, I need to see a daily trend change for me to look to trade Ethereum over Bitcoin. Otherwise, we are just in a very clear pattern where Bitcoin is holding much more strength relative to ETH. So as long as this chart is weak, if I were shorting in this crypto space, I would be looking at ETH bearish on any kind of Bitcoin weakness, and I'd be looking at Bitcoin bullish on any kind of Bitcoin strength. Right now, the bulls on Bitcoin, if you want to be an aggressive bull and hope for a cup and handle pattern, you're making an entry with a stop level below 6,668. And if you are a more patient bull, you're going to wait for a back test of these exponential moving averages. But if they catch up and those exponential moving averages hold the price, we could see that continuation. Hourly right now is grinding these exponential moving averages, so it all depends if this little hourly higher low can hold or not. That's going to dictate momentum for the rest of today into tonight. Either further consolidation and that daily equilibrium, or cup and handle pattern break to test the recent high. So Ethereum, bulls don't have a whole lot going for them. And at this point, I would just be patiently watching the ETH BTC chart and getting ready for a trend change or an oversold bounce, but we're not there yet. So Litecoin, again, same thing. Anything under 77.80 on the weekly is a lower high. Bears are in full control of the weekly time frame. And the daily chart is very similar to Ethereum. A little bit more strength, but not by much. Resistance is up at 59.21 and then up to 62.60. And as far as support goes, the most important level is down at 53.15 to maintain the daily higher low. So we have the low, high of the bounce, higher low, and now we're grinding exponential resistance. Bulls need the follow through to the higher high, which Bitcoin, again, saw long ago, but have not seen that in Litecoin or Ethereum. And to get any kind of weekly bounce going, we have to change the daily trend. BCH USD on the weekly time frame, also not close to changing any trends. Anything under 888 is just a lower high. And on the daily time frame, we have our low, high, higher low. So key support is 507.62, resistance is 577, and then 612.44. So again, all of these names are so far behind Bitcoin over the last week that it's hard to imagine them seeing bull breaks without Bitcoin being up over 7,000. So again, I would rather be trading Bitcoin on that strength and these names on any Bitcoin weakness. That's what the correlation currently favors. That correlation will change, and we have to be watching out for that change, but there's no sign of it right now. ETC USD. So we have our low, high. This is the weekly time frame. Higher low trying to form on the weekly, and a wide range that we can trade within for months at this point. So actually, this is the daily chart. So we could trade within this pattern for weeks at this point, let's say. Resistance is going to be 1350, followed by 1494, and the bulls really want to hold 1178. So trying to form an equilibrium, we need to see a little bit more follow through for the bulls up into the $13 range to give us this tightening weekly or tightening daily pattern. And at this point, normally you would want to go to a chart that has more history. This is the Coinbase chart. But if we're looking at a range and we're trading within that range, that's all the history we need right now. And once we break and there's no price action up here, we would then look at a different chart on a different exchange. And same if we were to break support. But I don't need that other history unless I'm looking long term on the weekly chart. All it has to do with is the current range that we are finding ourselves in right now. So a little bit different than Bitcoin settling in from the news and the Coinbase listing and all that, and watching for opportunity. Essentially, at this point, what I would be doing if I were trading altcoins, which I'm currently not, I would be looking for which names, I would make lists, which names are stronger than Bitcoin, which names are weaker than Bitcoin. There's going to be a lot more names weaker than Bitcoin than stronger, but there's definitely some names out there that do have a stronger uptrend than what Bitcoin is currently seeing. So I always want to keep track of that, and I'm always going to be changing those names and comparing them to each other. Who's strongest, who's weakest, who am I going to be playing on the bear move? Who am I going to be playing on the bull move? And again, I do that in stocks all the time. S&P 500 SPY is my gauge of strength. If we have a green day on SPY, I'm looking at the bullish setups. And if we have a weak setup on SPY for the day, I'm looking at the bearish setups. And even that's just for day trading. But I always want to know, I mean, you know by now that I'm all about correlations in everything that I trade. And I do think that that is a significant, important skill to have as a trader, recognizing correlations and seeing which things stand out. So to summarize it all up, Bitcoin bulls are very pleased with the action we've seen since the denial of the ETFs. We are trapping some shorts that we're anticipating downside, and they're in no rush to cover right now. Some of them are covering, and the ones that don't are going to see, again, another wave. If we can break 68.90, we'll see another wave of shorts cover, and then it's going to be up to the weekly equilibrium breaking bullish to see a big time short squeeze, and maybe even not a short squeeze. Again, that might be the wrong term for it because it could be slow. If we see the trend change and then keep an uptrend for the bulls on the daily time frame, it's only going to just add more and more pressure day by day, and we're going to see these shorts day by day trickle off and have to close out. But again, at this point, if you are a long-term bear, you're still comfortable in the downtrend on the weekly time frame. If you are a bear on the daily time frame, you're not so comfortable anymore. So it's going to get very interesting here. Again, September, until that happens, when I see a weekly equilibrium shaping up and I know that the ranges tighten in an equilibrium and the volume generally drops off, I scale back my trading and I wait for the break. And then when the break occurs, I increase my trading and aggressiveness significantly. So I feel that I'm probably going to be trading a lot more cryptocurrency in September, potentially October, depending on how long this pattern takes to play out. But it's going to be a notable spike in volume and volatility when we get this clear weekly break. So I appreciate you all watching. I hope you continue to do good things. Video here at the end of the day is some sunset action from Key West, and we'll see if I can get some good Austin stuff. Potentially some, well, we'll see. Don't want to make any promises. Thanks again. Don't know when I'll be back, but some point tomorrow we'll go over some altcoins, and I'll see you then.